I was an alcoholic, I was a drug addict, I was a womanizer, I was a gambler, but saved by grace. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood in the Bronx. If anybody ever saw the movie Goodfellas or Bronx Tale, that's where I grew up. It was a mafia-influenced neighborhood, and those are the people that I looked up to. You know, turn to your neighbor right now and say, "How you doing?" Well, if you're from New York City, you'll understand what I'm saying, and Ron could attest to that. I took him back to my neighborhood one day. Two things you don't do in the Bronx. You don't rat, which I won't, and you never, ever back down to a fight, no matter how much you get beat up. But, you know, my father was an alcoholic, my brother was a drug addict, my mom was a sweet Italian lady who cooked pasta on Sundays. But a lot of dysfunction in my family due to my father's alcoholism, my brother's addiction. And from that, it was a lot of anxiety in my household. From my brother overdosing, from my brother in and out of jail, from my brother in and out of treatment facilities. And that affected me, gave me insecurities. But at 14 years old, I started to drink. I was in the schoolyard in the Bronx, and I drank blackberry brandy. And I thought I arrived. But I was 5'4", I am 5'4", and I became 6'8". You didn't want to look at me the wrong way. I call it the Joe Pesci syndrome, which is you don't want to double cross me or look at me, especially after I drank. But that being said, I had to go through a lot of trials in my younger years, gambling, drinking, women, and all the things that come along with that, drunk driving, and I could go on and on stories. But God had a plan and a purpose for me. And at 20 years old, I just started working on Wall Street, and my brother Robert, who was 10 years older than me, he died of a heroin overdose. And I had to go identify his body, and that affected me. And then that spiraled my life out of control for the next year. And I wind up in a treatment facility. And I wind up coming out of the treatment facility and staying sober for a few years. And then the great success of Wall Street took over. I started drinking again, started doing all the nonsense, but I had made millions of dollars. I had 5 houses, I had engagements, girlfriends, and all the nonsense that comes along with that lifestyle. I was, you know, in the world so much that I was so worried about my life, and I was suicidal. But God had a plan and a purpose for Jeremiah 29:11. And all those things that I was trying to fill my void with could never fill it up. It says in the Bible, what does a rich man gain the whole world and lose his soul? That's me, gaining everything. But at 40 years old, after years of addiction, struggling, I finally got sober. And I did a movie on addiction, and I know everybody probably knows him, but there was an ex-ball player who played for the Yankees and the New York Mets. His name was Darryl Strawberry, and I wanted him to be in my movie, but he couldn't. But I had a divine appointment one night, and this was a miracle in Manhattan, in a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, 54th and Park Avenue. I ran into Darryl in a divine setting, and he led me to Jesus Christ that night. You can't tell me there's no God. He proceeded to come up to New York, and we started becoming good friends. He took me to a TV show in Manhattan, Trinity Broadcasting Network, and I had a little rap. I could talk to the women, and this producer was there. I gave her my card. I started dating her, and then about a year and a half later, Darryl and his wife married us. So after years and years of all the nonsense and the women and all that, I met a real great woman of God. But what happened, I had a really big business on Wall Street, and you know, we weren't living right. I was still had situations from the past, but I wind up losing the company, a multi-million-dollar business, and I wind up losing all my houses. This is after I come to Christ. I wind up losing all the stuff that I attained. My wife's looking at me like I had 3 heads. We started attending every Nation church. And the 4 men I mentioned earlier, Pastor Adam, Bruce, Shino, and Ron, they walked me through a difficult part in my life. And these guys were there at all times, no matter what. Poor Bruce Ho, I tortured him every week. He would tell me, how's your day? It would all relative to how much money I made. And I said, I had a bad day, but Bruce, I love you. And then God's a God of restoration. God's a God of second chance. And he gave me a second chance, and he restored me back on Wall Street. I had so many complicated situations after I lost my firm. I owed money to the wrong people, and you can understand what I'm saying, the wrong people. And then I had debts that I could not understand how I was going to get out of them. But God canceled them all. He restored me. And he put me back in a great position. And these men of God helped me. Now I am an evangelist. I travel the United States with the ball player Darryl Strawberry. I just started my own ministry. I have businesses that are around my faith. I'm 14 years sober. And I have a great outlook on life. I'm married for 10 years, 2 grandbabies, and I'm a miracle in Manhattan. And
awesome. That's great.
Thank you, Every Nation Church, for being there for me, and God bless you tonight.